My wife casually admitted she cheated with her boss, and I just left. I never thought I'd find myself writing something like this, but here I am, sitting in the quiet of my apartment, trying to make sense of the last few hours. Everything felt normal this evening, just a usual weekday wind-down. Dinner was uneventful, the news was on in the background, and she seemed distant, but nothing I hadn't noticed before. I'd just finished clearing the table when she looked at me with this strange, almost mischievous smile. I assumed she was joking or trying to lighten the mood after a long day. That's when she said it, as casually as someone might mention forgetting to pick up milk. I cheated with my boss. So what? At first, I thought I misheard her. My brain literally refused to process the words. I laughed nervously, hoping she was joking. She wasn't. She was dead serious. There was no apology, no hesitation, no sign of guilt. Just that casual, "So what?" tone, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't even react the way I thought I would. I just stared at her for a few seconds, trying to find the part of my mind that could compute this. My hands were gripping the edge of the table, and all I could think was, did I just hear that right? Did she just say that? Inside, my head was spinning. 1,000 thoughts collided at once. Betrayal, disbelief, heartbreak, and anger, all swirling into this heavy, nauseating cloud. I could feel my chest tightening, and I realized I was holding my breath without noticing. My usual instinct, to shout, to demand explanations, to try and fix things, was gone. There was just emptiness. Without saying a word, I left the room. I didn't storm out angrily. I didn't slam doors. I simply walked away and sat at the kitchen counter, letting the silence wash over me. I dropped my phone on the table, my fingers trembling slightly. Everything in me wanted to scream, to shake her until she understood what she'd just done. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. I replayed her words over and over in my head. I cheated with my boss. So what? The casualness of it, the sheer audacity. She didn't even ask for forgiveness or seem remorseful. She just said it, like it was a minor inconvenience, like spilling coffee on the counter. I sat there for what felt like hours, though it was probably just minutes. My mind was a blur of memories. Our anniversaries, our quiet nights together, the trust we built over the years. And now, it all felt meaningless. I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me, heavy and suffocating. An hour later, my phone rang. It was her. My thumb hovered over the screen, and I didn't know if I should answer. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend I was too busy or too hurt. Another part of me wanted answers, explanations, maybe even the familiar comfort of hearing her voice. But I couldn't bring myself to pick up. I could hear her voice through the voicemail she left, panicked, frantic, almost pleading. "Please, I didn't mean it like that. Listen, I can explain." She trailed off, her tone a mix of fear and guilt, but also a strange arrogance, like she expected me to forgive her instantly. I didn't call back. I didn't text. I just sat there staring at my phone, the ringing echoing in my mind even after it stopped. The whole situation felt surreal, like I had been pulled out of my life and dropped into someone else's nightmare. I haven't talked to her since. I don't know what I'm going to do. Part of me wants to confront her, demand the truth, hear every detail of what she did and why. But another part of me is terrified of what I might find, afraid that knowing too much will make this hurt even worse. All I know is this: my world feels crippled. The person I trusted most in my life just casually destroyed that trust in one sentence. And I don't know if I'll ever see her the same way again. Right now, I'm just sitting here, numb, trying to decide whether I'm going to answer her next call, whether I can even talk to her without breaking. I feel like I'm walking on a tightrope, suspended between heartbreak and anger, and I don't know which way I'll fall. I guess this is where I leave it for now. I needed to write it down, if only to make sense of the chaos in my head. I don't have answers yet, and I don't know what comes next, but I know that everything changed tonight. Update 1I didn't answer her first few calls after the bombshell, but eventually my phone started ringing incessantly, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Part of me wanted to pick up just to hear her voice, even if it tore me apart. The other part of me wanted to slam the phone down and never speak to her again. After a few deep breaths, I decided to answer. "Hello?" I said, keeping my voice steady, though my chest felt like it was being crushed. On the other end, I heard the panic immediately. Her voice was shaking, and she was practically begging, "Please, just listen. I didn't mean for it to happen." I held up my hand, even though she couldn't see it, and said calmly, "I'm listening. Explain everything, from the start, without stopping." There was silence for a moment. I could hear her take a shaky breath. Then she started talking, her words tumbling out in a rush. She told me when it started. Months ago, back when I'd been putting in extra hours at work and traveling. She described how it began as a casual flirtation with her boss, how it escalated into something more, and how she never planned to tell me. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't scream. I didn't yell or cry, though inside a storm was raging. Every word she spoke felt like a knife twisting in my chest, but outwardly I was calm. I wanted to hear everything before I made any decisions. I needed to know the full picture. Her tone shifted as she went on. She tried to justify it, to soften it with excuses, stress at work, feeling neglected, emotional distance, and even hints that it was my fault somehow. "You were always so busy," she said, "and I felt alone. I made a mistake." I stayed silent. I couldn't let her words manipulate me, but inside my emotions were spinning out of control, hurt, anger, disbelief. I kept thinking about all the small things I had done for our marriage, the nights I stayed up to comfort her, the weekends I sacrificed for us. And here she was, acting as if all of that meant nothing. I started questioning everything. Had I missed signs? Was I blind to her unhappiness? Or had I truly done nothing wrong? Could a marriage I had thought was strong be so fragile? The thoughts kept looping in my head, and every answer seemed to hurt more than the last. When she paused for breath, I asked one simple question. "Did he know you were married?" "Yes," she admitted reluctantly. "He knew, and I don't know why I kept going. It just happened." My stomach sank. I didn't say anything immediately. I just let her words hang in the air. Eventually, I told her I needed space. "I'm leaving the apartment tonight," I said. "I need to think. I can't be around you right now." Her reaction was immediate. "No, please don't leave. We can fix this, we can—" I interrupted calmly. "I'm not trying to fix anything. Tonight. I'm leaving. I'll contact you when I'm ready." She didn't respond for a moment, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then came the guilt-tripping. "I made a mistake. Can't we just talk? I love you." I didn't rise to it. I didn't argue. I just repeated, "I need space." And then I left. I stayed with a friend that night, someone I trusted implicitly. I told them what happened, and it felt surreal, saying the words out loud. She cheated with her boss. I could see their shock, the disbelief in their eyes, but I wasn't looking for pity. I just needed someone to hear it, someone who would understand the magnitude of what had just happened. As the hours passed, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, in a way. I didn't have to stay in the same room as her while my heart was breaking. But there was also a gnawing fear, a constant replay of her words in my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about her casual tone, the "so what?" That had punctuated the confession. I didn't contact her the rest of the night. I ignored her texts, her voicemails. Every notification made my stomach twist, but I forced myself not to answer. I needed clarity, not more panic or pleading. By morning, I had made a few decisions for myself. I needed boundaries. I needed time apart. And I realized something important. Staying calm in the moment didn't mean I was okay with what she had done. It meant I was taking control of my reaction, instead of letting anger or heartbreak dictate my next move. I haven't told her what I'm planning yet, whether that means confronting her boss, filing for divorce, or just stepping back to figure out my next steps. But I know I'm not going to let her manipulate me. Her panic, her guilt, her attempts to explain, they don't dictate my actions anymore. I need to act on what's best for me. Even now, as I sit here writing this, I can feel the tension in my chest, but also a strange clarity. I know I can't trust her words right now. I know that whatever she says, it's likely coming from fear, rather than honesty. And I know that, for the first time in a long while, I'm seeing the situation for exactly what it is: betrayal. I also realized that I can't rely on her to apologize or to make this right. This isn't about punishment. It's about survival, emotional survival, mental survival. And for that, I need to focus on myself first. Tonight, I'll be deciding my next steps. Do I confront the boss? Do I involve family? Do I start legal preparations? I don't know yet. What I do know is that I'll do it calmly, strategically, and without letting her chaos control my life. For now, I'm just trying to breathe, to process, to let the reality sink in. Betrayal is one thing. Casual. Betrayal is something else entirely, and I can't let this casual attitude of hers dictate the rest of my life. Update. After the first night apart, I realized I couldn't just sit back and wait. I needed clarity. I needed facts. I needed to see the situation for exactly what it was. So I started digging. At first, it was small things. Her messages, her schedule, little patterns I'd never paid much attention to. The texts started out casual, flirty, then escalated into something more intimate. Late-night messages, meetings at cafes, excuses about overtime or team projects. Every message I uncovered was another blow, but at the same time it fueled a strange sense of clarity. I could see the affair wasn't a one-time mistake. It was ongoing, calculated, and deliberate. When I confronted her with the evidence, I did it calmly. No yelling, no pleading, no dramatics. I just laid the messages and timelines out in front of her and said, "I see everything. Explain yourself." Her reaction was exactly what I expected. First shock, then panic, then excuses. "It wasn't like that. I didn't mean—" she started, voice shaking. But I held up my hand and stayed silent. I let her spill it all, let her reveal her desperation. It was a strange power shift. I was calm, measured, in control, and she was unraveling. Meanwhile, friends and family began noticing changes. She started acting differently around them, trying to maintain her perfect wife image. But the cracks were showing. Her attempts at justification were clumsy, her stories didn't add up, and subtle. Comments she thought no one noticed were being noticed. People could sense her panic, her inconsistency. I stayed silent when asked what was going on, only giving small, measured answers. I wasn't exposing her yet. I didn't need to. But I also wasn't letting her manipulate the narrative. Her panic grew by the day. She saw my calmness, my refusal to be baited, as a threat. She began trying to manipulate situations, showing up unexpectedly, leaving notes, sending texts late at night. She even tried to cover her tracks with coworkers, pretending everything was normal. But I had already collected the evidence. I wasn't reacting emotionally anymore, and that threw her off completely. I started taking control of my life in ways I hadn't realized I needed. I limited contact with her. refused to answer her calls at inconvenient times, and focused on myself, mentally, emotionally, and practically. I started seeing a therapist to process the betrayal and to gain perspective. I cleaned up my space, worked on personal goals I had neglected, and reminded myself that my life wasn't defined by her mistakes. Then came the moment that truly flipped the power. She tried a dramatic reconciliation, showing up at my friend's apartment where I was staying, sobbing, claiming she couldn't live without me, that she regretted everything. I didn't engage. I didn't apologize, didn't beg, didn't let her guilt trip me. I let her words fall flat. I calmly told her, "I'm not available for this conversation. You need to leave." Her boss was suddenly part of the puzzle in a way I hadn't expected. I discovered that he had been less than honest, too, lying, to cover his own reputation, misleading her, even promising things he never intended to deliver. The realization hit her hard when I calmly mentioned it during our next conversation. It was like she realized the entire structure she'd relied on for her excuses was crumbling, and she had no control over it anymore. I began taking steps toward legal and personal closure. I consulted a lawyer, ensured that any joint assets or financial matters were documented, and mentally prepared for the eventual end of the marriage. But more importantly, I regained emotional power. She had assumed I would react with desperation or anger. She had assumed she could manipulate me with panic and guilt. But I refused. I stayed calm, clear-headed, and strategic. Every day, my confidence grew. I wasn't just surviving the betrayal. I was thriving despite it. I was asserting boundaries, refusing manipulation, and focusing on my own growth. She underestimated me. She thought her casual attitude and frantic apologies would weaken me, but instead, they sharpened my clarity and determination. There was a major turning point one evening when she attempted one last, dramatic plea. She came to my apartment unexpectedly, holding flowers, hoping to catch me off guard, but I was prepared. I didn't open the door immediately. I let her knock, let her wait, and when I finally opened it, I looked at her calmly and said, "You've made your choices. Now it's time for you to face the consequences." Her face fell. She wasn't expecting composure. She was expecting tears, begging confrontation. I had flipped the power dynamic completely. She tried to guilt-trip me one last time, but her words didn't land. I refused to let them. I calmly told her she needed to leave and that our conversations would be conducted only when appropriate. She left, frustrated, panicked, and powerless. By this point, I was fully in control. She was spiraling, and I was grounded. I had collected evidence, set boundaries, and ensured that my life wasn't dictated by her actions. I could see her panic as she realized that no matter what she did, I wasn't going to beg or crumble. She was learning too late that casual betrayal doesn't mean casual forgiveness. I spent the next few days focusing on my personal growth. I reconnected with friends I had neglected, invested in hobbies I had ignored, and took care of my mental and emotional health. I realized that empowerment wasn't just about confrontation or revenge. It was about reclaiming myself, my life, and my peace of mind. There were moments of doubt, of course. Late at night, when everything was quiet, I would replay her words, her casual tone, the shock of it all. But those moments were fleeting. I reminded myself that her choices did not define me. My reaction, my growth, and my boundaries did. By the end of this phase, I was no longer reacting to her panic. I had set the stage for final closure. She was anxious, desperate, and unprepared for the calm, measured control I had established. And I realized that the final move, whatever form it would take, would be mine to execute, on my terms, without her manipulation. I don't know exactly what will happen next. Will there be a final confrontation? Legal proceedings? Or maybe Just a formal end to a marriage that no longer serves either of us? I'm not rushing it. I'm letting events unfold strategically, making sure every step is measured, every decision informed, and every interaction under my control. The truth is, I feel stronger than I have in years. I've faced betrayal head-on, and I haven't crumbled. I've seen the situation for what it is and acted accordingly. She thought she had power over me, but in her panic, she revealed her own weakness. I'm calm, prepared, and empowered, and she knows it. The final chapter is approaching. I can feel it. I'm in control, and she is reacting, panicking, trying to manipulate a situation she no longer controls. The next steps will be decisive, and this time I will dictate the terms. For now, I'm watching, waiting, and preparing. She may try to reach me again, she may try more manipulations, but nothing will shake the control I've regained. I am no longer a passive participant in this chaos. I am the one steering the ship, and she is merely a storm I am navigating with clarity and calm. Final update. The last few weeks have been surreal. After the storm of betrayal, panic, and manipulation, I finally reached a point where I could see everything clearly. I realized that the final confrontation wasn't going to be loud or dramatic. It was going to be quiet, decisive, and completely under my control. I decided to end things formally. I wrote a letter, calm, composed, and factual, laying out the state of our marriage, the betrayal, and the boundaries moving forward. There was no blame-laden rhetoric, no dramatic flourishes, just the truth, clearly stated, with consequences spelled out. I delivered it in a way that she couldn't misinterpret. I gave it to her directly, and then I walked away. No arguments, no pleading, no emotional chaos. Her reaction was immediate and telling. At first, she laughed nervously, probably expecting some last-minute begging from me. When she realized I wasn't going to argue, when she saw the calm in my eyes and the firmness in my tone, her laughter faltered. Panic replaced it. She tried excuses, tried to manipulate with tears and apologies, but they fell flat. She realized. She had lost control, and that realization hit harder than anything I could have said. The fallout on her side was immediate. She reached out to her boss, expecting solidarity or support, but found none. It turned out that he wasn't nearly as committed to her as she had believed. His reaction, cold and dismissive, made her realize that her entire strategy, her casual approach to betrayal, had failed spectacularly. The life she thought she was building crumbled quickly, and she had no one to lean on. Meanwhile, my life started to settle back into a rhythm that felt like mine again. I reclaimed my space, physically and emotionally. The apartment, once a place of tension and secrets, became a sanctuary. I invested time in myself, reconnecting with friends and hobbies I had neglected. I even started dating again, slowly and carefully, aware of my worth and unwilling to compromise it. I found gratitude in unexpected places. I was grateful for my composure, for the moments I had stayed calm instead of reacting impulsively. I was grateful for the clarity that came from observing rather than yelling or pleading. Most of all, I was grateful that I didn't lose myself in the chaos, that I didn't let her panic or manipulation dictate my actions. Reflection has been a large part of this process. I've thought a lot about what I will never allow again: casual betrayal, disrespect, and manipulation. I've reminded myself of the importance of boundaries and self-respect. This experience, as painful as it was, has strengthened me in ways I didn't anticipate. I understand now that empowerment isn't about revenge. It's about clarity, composure, and reclaiming your life. Her collapse was complete. The casual, confident woman who had once casually admitted her affair was gone. She was replaced by someone desperate, scrambling, realizing too late that her choices had consequences she could no longer control. Meanwhile, I stayed calm, observing from a distance, letting events unfold without interference. The power dynamic had shifted completely. In practical terms, the divorce proceedings were straightforward. Because I stayed composed and documented everything, the legal side of things moved quickly and efficiently. There was no need for drama or spectacle. I remained the rational party throughout, which made the process smoother and ultimately less painful. Emotionally, I feel stronger than I have in years. I've regained my peace, my confidence, and my sense of self. I've learned that betrayal, no matter how casual, can be confronted with calmness and strategy rather than anger and desperation. I've learned that boundaries are more powerful than guilt trips, and self-respect is more important than reconciliation. Life now is quieter, yes, but it's also richer. I wake up without the shadow of her betrayal looming over me. I plan my days, focus on work, invest in friendships, and nurture my own growth. I can pursue happiness without fear of manipulation or casual cruelty. I feel empowered, steady, and clear-headed. There's a strange satisfaction in knowing that, in the end, I controlled the narrative. She tried to manipulate, to guilt, to panic, but none of it worked. I stayed composed, strategic, and calm throughout, and that made all the difference. I didn't have to escalate, beg, or fight. My calmness became my strength, and it was what ultimately left her powerless. Looking back, I realized something crucial. Losing a marriage doesn't mean losing yourself. I lost a relationship built on trust, but I didn't lose my integrity, my self-respect, or my composure. I faced betrayal head-on and emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident. That is the true victory here. For anyone reading this going through something similar, I can only say this: stay calm, stay composed, and observe. Don't let panic dictate your actions. Set boundaries and stick to them. Document what you need. 2, and focus on reclaiming your life rather than reacting to someone else's chaos. Empowerment comes from clarity, not chaos. As for her, I've stepped away completely. I no longer engage, no longer respond, no longer allow her panic to influence my life. She is left to face the consequences of her actions, and I am left to rebuild, grow, and move forward. I lost a marriage, but I didn't lose myself. I walked through betrayal, panic, and manipulation, and I emerged calm, composed, and empowered. And now, for the first time in months, I feel truly free.